And we are live with another Edutainment Podcast with myself, Chad, my brother from another mother and co-host, Fagan Miller.
I'm back.
You back? You back?
I'm back. I ran here.
You ran here. Yes, yes. And we're very excited to introduce our special guest for this week. He is a lawyer. He makes legal liquor. He is our friend, and his name is Sipho Maphanga. Sipho, welcome to the Edutainment Podcast.
Thank you for having me this evening, guys. Much appreciated.
Yes,
Happy to be here.
So, Sipho, tell us a little bit about you.
Goodness, what do you want to know?
Besides being a lawyer.
Sure. I grew up in Durban. I came to Cape Town on a holiday back in 2008. Fell in love with it. And when I left home, I was like, where can I go? I came to Cape Town, and I've been here ever since, really, to be honest. Yeah.
When did you come to Cape Town? When did you come to Cape Town again?
2011.
2011.
So
after the World Cup.
After the year after the World Cup, imagine.
But the World Cup in Durban was potent.
Yes, no, we watched at the fan park there in Suncoast Casino, so it was great. I remember that first goal that was scored.
Did you get to go to any games?
No, we went to the fan parks.
So 2011 you come to Cape Town. What were we doing in 2011 in Cape Town?
Year after the World Cup.
Oh yeah, we were still buzzing, yeah. It was the Cape Town Stadium and things, yeah.
I had a party when I came here, so I had fun. I was like, I love it.
Yeah. But did you came here for work?
No, to study.
Oh, to study. So you studied at?
At UCT.
Oh, yes. Okay.
And how was law at UCT?
It was tough, but we made it through. Here we are now. So first, that's what counts, but it builds you. There was a lot of character building, but we made it through.
Yeah.
Yes.
Tell us about the process, when did you decide to become a lawyer? And what was the experience like? A lot of people want to go into the field of law, and they think they have this preconceived notion that that's what it is. Give us and the listeners a feel of what made you become a lawyer and what that process was like.
Can I say all my wrong thinking about it?
Yeah, give us the misconception quickly.
I'll be a shark.
A little quick misconception. Brother, don't study law. You're going to have to study long, and then you must still do articles and then something else. Then you become a lawyer. And they can ask you to give a lot of things around. And when you become a lawyer, you must all decide what you want to be, an advocate, a judge. Now, I have no thing. All I know is, okay, that's the person you go to for the ethical part. Okay. I have friends that were lawyers. I was UWC, so they're from the A block. Shout out to the A block guys. Serie A. That was their team. But the lawyer guys always said it's going to be a long haul.
I think the doctors have it worse than the lawyers, to be honest. So I don't know why there's a whole rivalry between the two. But 7 years and then doing your practicals that the doctors do and then specializing, it takes further years. So it's 4 years for us. 4 years, not too bad. And then 2 years articles. So it's all right.
Okay.
It could be much more harder.
So you went to UCT.
I did. People were just when they hear that name, they just think elitism. But I went there. It was interesting, as I said. The journey was quite something. With regards to what made me study law, so initially, I'm quite an avid reader. I've been for most of my life, and I was interested in being an investigative journalist, actually. So I did some research. I found out that you actually needed to have an LLB degree. So that's actually what pushed me towards
to become an investigative journalist.
That's what I found out in terms of my research.
LLB?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's what I found out. Then in grade 11, I don't know whether you guys remember, we had this thing called work experience.
Yes.
So I did.
I was before that. Job shadowing in my years.
I was also job shadowing. I was transitioning though to the work integrated learning and the work service, the fancier terms, but it was just a shadow. I think it sounded nice as well because it didn't give us the expectation that we actually, that there's anything it wasn't too serious. It's like you're going to go there and you're going to shadow someone. It felt safe.
Okay.
Where did you go?
I went to, my dad worked at ABSA. So I went to ABSA Bank.
Okay.
Okay.
I went to Virgin Active.
Oh, nice.
It was potent.
Wasn't it Health and Racket that time? Or was it still Virgin?
Yo, it's ego.
What was it called before? Virgin
Health and
Active?
Racket.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Virgin Active sounds better.
Virgin bought them over.
Sure.
Totally dominated the market. I mean, Virgin has everything. Virgin Atlantic, Virgin Mobile, Virgin Airline, Virgin Records. Richard Branson,
He's good, though.
magnificent man. That's why he's sir.
He's good though. Gotta give it.
For sure.
And his best friend, or one of his best friends, is Desmond Tutu. The two of them, he always invites Desmond Tutu, or invited Desmond Tutu over to his island. And the two of them are like two lighties. They were having fun, enjoying each other, catching on crap, like two gruwelike lighties. It was fun to watch.
But his foundation is linked together with the two of them. Yeah, I remember seeing on LinkedIn a dinner that they had,
Okay.
and they invited all the foundation that they support.
Oh, interesting. I really didn't. I didn't know that, to be honest. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah. So, Sips, take us back to your UCT experience. What was UCT like? What was the legal journey like? You said you were an avid reader. So, obviously, for people, if there's a young person that wants to study law, they obviously are listening to you now and they're seeing you giving them some tips. So, number one, avid reader for sure, right?
You need to.
Number two, be dedicated to 7 years at least.
No, not 7 years. Look, it's very intense. I think I remember in the first week, because you get a mix of people. So you get people who are fresh out of high school. You get people who've been doing other courses as undergrad, so they know what to expect from varsity. So the people that I found myself with, who had just come from high school, and we're like, oh, we're in varsity now. We're so cool. We're studying law. And the first week had us,
Nice.
The first week humbled us. It humbled us, and then that's when we realized, okay, it's a different setup, and then we just rolled with the punches, and yeah.
I think for everybody that transition from just into high school, I didn't know how to study at all.
Okay.
I went to Tux after I got invited to Tux, me and a friend of mine.
Okay.
We went there for 2 weeks, and then it was like, nah, I don't want to be away from home.
Is it?
Came back home, and then friends of mine went to go visit UWC.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, now I'm going to go with.
Okay.
And they just said, now take your results with you and your ID. And they actually went to go fetch their results. It was actually a potent story. And my brother goes to fetch his results, and they're like, sorry, you didn't pass the TALP test. That's what it was called. And then you don't get in. Here the lady say, oh, can I see your results? She's like, yeah. I say, yeah, you go. She's like, and I had straight C's. She's like, you can survive. BA. I'm like, can I study here? She said, what else do you do? I said, I can play soccer. She said, like, no, you can play soccer here also. Do you have money? I said, no. All right, here's some NSFAS forms, here's some other forms, go sit in that line. And then I just came home and told my mom, I think I can study.
Okay.
There's people said I can come here. I think I just spoke nicely to the lady that day. And also they feel sorry for you. What are you doing now? I don't know. I just came from some other place. So it's always good to hear that. But what I'm getting to is the transition. I failed hopelessly. Soon and until we will put up my results here for everybody. I can't wait. That's like a
All
story
the
on its own.
C's. The C's.
Nah, what's my first year results at university? I got barely G's, bruh.
No.
I failed hopelessly. Like, party, people, myself.
It's part of the journey.
And also, like, for me, the responsibility, I always tell the kids, there's no bell.
Okay.
So there's no transition into here, you need to go to the next class. Like, you need to be responsible. If you don't look at your watch, and if you're 10 minutes late, there's that decision moment.
For sure.
That moment when you have to decide, am I going to class late?
Or am I not going?
Or am I not? Because the conversation is buzzing here also. Whatever we're doing here is directly. So, and they always do say, class is overrated, man. And I fell for it hopelessly. So I like to hear the story of like how you survived, you know. That's important. Like the group of people you had around you. You maybe still
For sure, and it's interesting because you make lifelong friends when you go to university. So some people that I met there, I actually still work with them even today. So some of them have their own businesses or they're advocates. So we still actually work together. So you realize it's quite a close-knit community.
No, I believe in the expansion. It's something I preach to the kids. You have your childhood friends from your hometown. You know, you're the homies.
For sure.
That only have that nickname that they can call you. You know, if
What was your nickname?
Baba.
Baba.
But if I hear someone shout, Baba, then I know this is the old man from Strandfontein time on the primary school. Because how do you know that name? And then you get your high school friends, obviously. That's transitioning now again. Or primary school, then high school. And then what after that? Now I went to university. So that group. Because I always felt like people that you met at university had the future thinking. They just had it. They always thought, hey, I'm going to finish. Those who didn't even finish, if you speak to them now, we have a group still. That's like the one group that I keep. Well, it's extremely funny. My university group, the Perth group. Because that's just everybody's buzzing. I think everybody's in a good space. Okay. Because I just think the tertiary environment creates that. And like you say, the group you're with, it keeps on expanding. I would just ask how that transitioned even to after university, then you transitioned into the workplace. How was that?
No, I think for me, what happened after varsity, so I was a little bit lastminute.com. So everyone was busy talking about, we need to get articles, we need to. I was like, do we need to do that already now? And that was going towards the end of the year. So, you learn once again life lessons. So I ended up going home after varsity. So I was home for the year.
Back to KZN?
Yeah, so I went back to KZN. But Cape Town still got me. So I came back to Cape Town in 2018 to come work here. But when I went back home to KZN, I ended up doing something called practical legal training. So basically it's a 6-month course. I was doing it at UKZN. I'm like, okay, there's a whole bunch of strangers now. I'm used to what you're saying when you go to university and there's people that you know. So I ended up going to this place. I'm like, there's 63 of us in a class. I don't know anyone here. I'm like, ooh, and you can see everyone kind of knows each other. There's a sense of familiarity. I'm like, where do I start? But then being me, within a week, I mean, it was a great experience because I think it just re-enhanced that notion that I have that, your ability to be able to speak to people gets you far in life. So, you are able to just be yourself, interact with people, and by the end of that journey, I was pretty much friends with everyone. So, I mean, even now, there's people from there that I'm actually working with. So it was one of those things where, hey, let's go. So, yeah.
With regards to your classmates, and you also mentioned that a lot of them are now colleagues, have you noticed that, or in your experience, as a lot of your classmates, have they made it? I don't know how else to put it, because you guys are lawyers. There's there's a high expectation. Obviously, you're highly functional, people, very smart. To be a lawyer, you mentioned that you need to be an avid reader. So out of most of the professions, people who study law, they generally, even if they drop out, they can become very successful, just by studying law.
Look, yeah, I suppose your question of you said have they made it? I suppose it depends on you as a person, what you define having made it as being. So there's some people who would interpret that am I working for one of the biggest law firms in South Africa? For them, that's I've made it. There's some people who I have my own law firm. Would I consider that having made it? And some people, so it really depends on the individual and what you consider as making it. So
what is making it to you?
Sure, that's
because you are, for me, why I like you so much is because you don't offer your services like other lawyers do. Number one, a lot of lawyers offer it per hour. And there's this rate, and the rate is a bit high, and it kind of feels like, people already under pressure, because when you reach out to a lawyer, it means you're in trouble generally.
For sure.
So it's not the most fun experience. But when I learned about Maphanga attorneys, and when I met you, I was like, wow, this guy's actually an impact lawyer. He's like me in education,
Okay, for sure.
He treats each case by not necessarily what that person can offer me financially, but by who this person is and how I can help this person. You actually made your legal service a service, a service to other people. So yeah, is that, for me, that's success.
Okay.
You know?
You're trying to make me blush, eh?
Hey.
No, I think, to answer your question, for me, I think if you go back to when everyone was busy studying at varsity, I think everyone had this notion of, I want to be a lawyer because I want to help correct the social ills that we see in society, and then somewhere along the line on the journey, it just changes. I think, you go end up working for people, you do your articles, and it's just like, take that idea out of your mind. You hear it's all about profits. This is what you end up doing. I think, even when I was doing my articles, we all have this thing when you're still training to be an attorney. You say, oh my gosh, I would never evict someone out of a house. That's just inhumane. And, just in the environment that you find yourself being in, you end up having to do that, and it's like, oh my gosh. And I think it's a point, it's like a point of no return. You're like, oh, I've done something that I said I'd never do. But, what pushes you through that is you realize, okay, wait, someone is paying a bond on this house, and this is a tenant who's staying here, and the tenant has just got a complete disregard for the owner and saying, I don't care about you, like, I'm here, what are you going to do? And you see that nasty side of people, then I think some people get sucked in by that nasty side, and some people get sucked in about billables and fees. So, I think I just got to a point where, let's go back. As an individual, I'm told that I like helping people. So I think for me, it's all about being able to assist people. The thing is, so many people have issues, but money doesn't have to be the problem. So I do charge an hourly rate, by the way. But my thing is, as opposed to making people's lives difficult and saying, give me a deposit of however amount of money, I'm a person just like you. Like, if I was in trouble, I'd like to think someone would just be able to assist me as well. I mean, it's part of who we are as humans, or it's part of what we're meant to be as humans, rather. So my thing is, let's talk. What's your issue? Can I help you? Let's, have a payment plan in place. But the fact that you can't provide money now, which is, unfortunately is where we find ourselves. If there's no money, sorry, there's the door. I think for me, that's a bit problematic. So that's why I am where I'm at right now.
So if it is the case where you are providing the service and this person is obviously there's a payment plan, it's not the most ideal financially for you.
Sure.
Would the criteria for that person then be that person actually has a real case, that it's not that they are trying to sue someone for no reason, that actually what you are representing them for is something that you believe in? Are you selective over who you represent?
I think all lawyers are selective. You do get clients who are very headstrong and they believe in what it is that they want to pursue. But you come as the legal mind and you say, look, no, no, it's not going to fly. But I think, to answer your question, there was once an incident when I was still with a big law firm where a client came in. Well, let me not call him a client. A person came in, and this person was from Khayelitsha, and they had gotten an inheritance, I think, of about 150,000 rand. And they tried to do something sensible with that. So for them, they tried purchasing a house. So they just thought, if I want a house, I just pay the owner, I get the house, without knowing there's a whole conveyancing process, And my thing as well is, I'm big on educating people, because we speak about people having rights, but what good are your rights if you don't know how to exercise your rights? So my thing in that situation, this person came in and I listened. I was like, okay, what's the story? And, they paid the money over to the seller, and the seller pretty much defrauded this person, just disappeared with the money, but stayed with the house, because it was a couple, but they were going through a divorce. So one of the spouses took the money and was like, well, it's not my problem now, I've got money, and the house wasn't transferred to you. So now this is the situation you're sitting with. And I was like, sure, okay, he doesn't have a job. This was like an inheritance, and it's not a small amount of money. And he tried doing a sensible thing. So, from there, I was like, I really want to help this man because I have the ability to help you. So,
Correct. Brilliant.
And, I went to my boss and I was like, look, this is this person's problem. And, as I say, we find ourselves in a situation where it's all about the money. And, I think for me, and that sat with me. I don't know what happened to this person. But it's still something that sits with me to this day where I had to go back. I was like, sorry, brother. I've been advised to request that you give us a deposit of 5,000 rand, knowing very well that he doesn't have that amount of money. Yeah. And he's like, I don't have it. I was like, well, unfortunately, I can't help you. It's just, but maybe go try going to legal aid or going to the Legal Practice Council and they can actually give you an attorney. But the problem with that as well is with those types of organizations, if if you get paid a monthly salary of like 5,500 or more, you don't qualify.
Oh no!
So you just get
I knew
that last middle, and it's just like, okay, if things go bad for you and you need a lawyer, what are you going to do? So it's a problem, man. And yeah, I think I'm doing the little bit that I can. I've helped people. People are very grateful. I've helped people, who don't have a lot of money to people who have a lot of money. So my practice is just my clients. I have a variety of clientele.
What sort of relationships do you form with your clients? Because obviously if you are helping a client or you defending them in the court of law, I'm sure they kind of see you as this high figure, and there's a certain level of reverence and respect for you. So how do you balance your personal relationship with your client with the professional relationship with the client? Is there a border that you cross, or can you do both at the same time?
Because I just want to add also, because there's a lot of emotion obviously involved. The pathos.
Okay.
The pathos is the emotion.
Okay.
And then obviously, like you say, in that moment, the logical decision there with the client that you had to say you couldn't, because you, as much as you want to do it, because of you in the people business. Like that's what it is. It's bottom line. It's the people business. Education is the people business. Certain things people don't understand is the people business. Sport is the people business.
Sure.
So it's very important. And then the last thing is the credibility. So pathos, logos, and ethos. So that's just to add on is that how do you build that rapport with your clients? Like, does it how long does it stem? It's good lasting relationships?
It is, yeah. I think call it a natural gift. I don't know. I just think it's part of who I am as a person. I don't think I've never had a problem when it comes to engaging with people. So when you ask me, and I've had to think about it, but I have clients who come and thank me because they're so helpful for what I've done for them. It's like, but yeah, it's something that I know how to do. Sometimes
this
it's
is my thing.
Well, not my thing, because that's super confidence, but I help. And so there's sometimes matters that drag on for too long. Sometimes there's circumstances that are beyond your control, and if you just have the ability to communicate that effectively, I guess, with your clients, I don't have, like, I'm thinking about your question now, and I don't have any problems.
Are any of your clients, have they become your friends?
So that's interesting, because I mean, I've had friends who've become my clients.
They want free gigs.
No, not even, and it's great. I mean, I've had so much support. I've had friends, in different provinces, and I've told them, you do know you can just get the service there. They're like, no, but we want to support you, man. Come on, you're a lawyer. So it's great. I mean, as we're speaking right now, I've got work not only in the Western Cape, but in other provinces, because people are like, we like you as a person. And I tell people that, look, okay, but it just makes sense to get an attorney, like somewhere over there. It's like, no, you do all the work for us. You do what you need to do in terms of an attorney. So Yes. So do I get clients who become friends? I think, yeah, there are a few that do actually. Yes. To answer your question, yes, I do.
And then for me, are you you're not the get out of jail free card lawyer, Mus? We need to explain that, Mus. Very important. The people out there is like rubbing their hands, like, nah, this man is get out of jail free. Because you then saying you got friends that you do favors for. So on a business. You need to say, in what line are you the get out? Are you Sipho? I'm in trouble, man. I just got pulled over now, and I left my license at home. And there's an old beer in the car. So I'm fighting it. So just give us the stream you find yourself in. Very important.
Yeah, for sure. Look, I find myself in civil litigation, so more not necessarily the criminal stuff. I do touch upon it a little bit, but I do have people that I refer criminal law stuff to. And, that's once again the importance of collaboration. So, if something comes along that you can't deal with for whatever the reason might be, you know that there's a group of people that you work with. This is something that you're pretty good at. So there you go, you take care of that work. So with me, I focus on, if you want a will drafted, so it's a general practice that I have. But if you want a will drafted, sure, come through. I'll help you with the will. I'll advise you, what to look out for. And, I've also got some connections in the financial services space who, because the problem that you have, and, this is what I experienced in practice again, was, you get people coming in who draw up wills, right? So it's like, okay, fantastic. You have a great thing on paper, but we don't speak about your liquidity in terms of how your finance look like. So the financial planning that's necessary to give effect to your wishes, and that's when you find situations of someone passes away and is busy holding his head. But you get a situation of someone passing away, and that's when the families have to start selling assets because someone passed away, but they didn't make provision for what happens if I pass away. These are my wishes. I'd like my family to be covered in this way. So yeah.
And when that happens, normally you see that there's conflict.
You don't know. That is the thing in the dust.
You look like you're talking.
Laughing now. That's in the thing on the. It's everywhere. Most. More. Okay. Say more. Someone just died. And there's the house. So and this is powerful. You know that because someone just died. There's the house. Julle baklei oor die huis. They are fighting over the house, right? But they forget that, what's his name, debts also still?
Yeah, that's true. And the thing is, and once again, I'm all about educating people. So, what I found was that, and it's unfortunately in areas where people just don't have access to information. And that's where, we need to change the narrative in that respect. But the situation you're talking about, someone living in a family house and, let's say the parent dies and the house is in the parent's name. You don't report it to the master's office. You don't do anything. 10 years down the line, you decide, okay, you know what? I want to move somewhere else. Let me sell the house. Then you go to a conveyancer. And it's like, no, but it's not in your name. Like, you understand you need to go report this estate at the master's office.
Estate tax.
There's all those things as well, depending on how much the estate is valued at. But, that the minimum time that takes is 6 months. So if you've got a purchaser for your place, it's highly probable that they won't be interested if it's going to take 6 months for that process, never mind the conveyancing process. So it takes too long, and these are things that people don't know about, and they find out when it's crunch time.
But you think it's very important for mother, for example, before she dies, to make things very, very clear? Because obviously, besides the will, a lot of parents, especially from, a lot of friends and family I know on the Cape Flats, the mother will leave the house and the mother will say, if there's one child in particular that doesn't have a place to stay, dan die huis is die kind se huis. There's always a place for my children to stay. But then the issue is the lazy one then ends up not having a place, and then the
Okay.
ones who do okay, they don't get anything because the lazy one, maybe for example, is staying at home. I'm
Okay.
not, and if you are the lazy one at home, I'm not talking about you. I'm just giving an example.
For sure.
So what in that case, do you think it's very important for those who have assets to understand and not do things ethically, but do things fairly? Because you don't do it like that, and then what happens is that you pass on, and now the children start fighting amongst each other, and it creates animosity, and that's not
Sure.
what the parent would want.
Sure.
You know?
I think, look, and unfortunately, and like since we're speaking about wills and estates, that's where you see the ugly side of humanity. The claws come out, and it's just, and it's unfortunate, but apparently money tends to do that. But in the situation where mommy passes on without having a will, everyone, so let's just say she has 4 children and she's not married, then everyone inherits equally, so equal portions. So what you're saying, practically speaking, if other kids have assets and there's one person who doesn't have an asset, it would be like, depending on how reasonable family members are as well, because I think that's the bottom line. You get families are like, no, it's okay, you can stay there, and then when you're back on your feet, we can sell the property. If no one's going to be there, then we can split the proceeds equally. But it depends on how connected the family is, because as I say, when these things happen, you really see the bad side of
So like
everyone.
with your one, Chad, I wanted to ask you, is your one the mommy left? We're saying all the time the mommy. Somebody left the will, like or you talking about, they said everybody around the table, and they said, my children, there's 4 of you, and I want, if anything happens, you going to take the house, eh? He's going to take the house. Are you saying like they said, or there was a will? Or are you talking about that?
I'm talking in the case where the mother says, or the granny, the one
Like
who
I'm talking
passes
about
away.
says, or there is something.
Look, they didn't put it on paper.
So there isn't.
Yeah.
There isn't something, but there is some form of verbal agreement. Because
That's
see,
not
at the time when the will is drawn, or at the time when the conversation is had, it's talking about the future. It's saying that in the case that this happens, that my house is there, so one of my children does not go onto the sea. Because normally in a family, you always get the black sheep, or the one that's lazy, or the one that doesn't do as well as others. And me, if I'm a father, I want to make provision for that one.
Now,
But you don't know who that one's going to be. So in your will, you can't also be too specific to say, no, it needs to be equally shared among that 4. So, sometimes you, like, is there discretion?
I want another verbal thing. I'm really on this verbal thing.
Yes.
Okay.
Let's sort out the verbal thing, and then we sort out if there is something in place. Because I'm very curious, because again, this happens, they sit around the table, and again, to educate, bro, I need to know these things.
Yeah.
Because I need to explain these to people.
And you have kids one day, and you're going to leave a property to your kids, so you want to know what to do to not get into,
And I speak to a lot of people where, where it's like, they say, I'm living at home, it's a fight for the house and whatever. So the thing is, if there's no will in place, there was just a meeting. If everybody has a recollection of the meeting, where, what's his name said, you must have the house. However, you must make sure that Chad always have a place to stay.
Okay.
He's the youngest,
Okay.
and he must always have a place to stay. And he heard that in that meeting, and he was like, yes, man.
that's my house
I
now.
was thinking that long, bro. You said,
I'm the
"Not
captain."
that. I'm the captain. And then you the eldest. Remember, you the eldest. That's why they gave it to you. Youngest. And then I'm middle. And then I'm also like, okay, I just want my cut. Sell this thing.
Just started a job.
Because now what happens is going to be, then you also go, yeah, we sell this thing. But he must stay there. Because that's what was said. So now me and you go 2 against 1.
So you see, it's I don't even say it's a moot point. So if there's no will, then the person passes away intestate, which means that you've had no will. So there's a certain process that you follow. So let's just say that they weren't married and they have 3 children. So because there was no will, because a will is a document that proves what your wishes were. So if there was no will, then, the estates would be divided into 3, right, in terms of the law. But to just answer the specific point that you're saying, you know, if that child who was left the property was really adamant that no, but the property is mine, it would then have to be a matter where you take it to court, because the master's office would say, where's the will? No will. Okay, everyone's getting everything equally, and the executor would need to assist with that process, or the executor's agent. And if that child is adamant, then, you know, you say, look, I'm getting the services of an attorney. You'd also need an advocate, because you'd go to the high court, and you'd need to show that, you know, this was this person's last wishes. But the document is important. Like the document, I cannot underpin the importance of the document. It is very important to have that document. So if mommy does wish, and you pointed out that, you know, must it be specific? Yes, so that we know what your intention is. So you can't have something where it's, oh, okay, what does she mean here? Because we're not sure, and then it's a problem. And I've actually got a matter that I'm sitting with now where the will, I'm not too sure who drew up the will, but they made a bit of a blunder when drawing up the will, and the person whose will it is has subsequently passed away. And now as the attorney, I'm sitting with the problem, and I've got to run up and down to the master's office and say, look, here was the intention. Like, I've met with the family. This is what was intended. I know what's written in the document has an effect of X, but this person wanted Y. But it's not enough that, you know, the family is like, this is what the person wanted. It's like, okay, we need to go to the master, and the master can come back and say, no, you got to do X, and then you would have to go to court, and then these people would have to testify and be like, no, this is how we know that this person wanted it to be like this, and that you're incurring costs, and it's you know, it's unnecessary costs.
Massive information out there. Now, because there was a saying, where there's a will, there's a way. There's a lich. That's the most worst saying ever. Whoever told it's worse.
But that's true.
There's a will. There's a way.
The way is clear. The way forward is very clear.
And so now we are at the point of there is a will.
Yeah.
But I like that you explained about the specifics, because it also gives us insight into not anybody can draw up a will out there, because people be making money off people. You know what I mean?
And on that point, I think I need to point out as an attorney, do not, CNA has wills that people just like, and I look, it's a great initiative that they have, you know, because people will go to buy stationery and like, oh, there's a will, let me just, it is a bit of a problematic, not a bit, it's a problematic will, because it simplifies something which isn't always necessarily simple. So, you know, you're getting someone to fill out a document which 9 times out of 10 they don't understand.
It doesn't relate to them.
You know, so, and then now they pass on, and you're stuck with a document which is like, you need to try and make sense of this, or it's too simple for the state that the person has. So it's always best for someone to actually consult with an attorney, and you can actually get the advice for your specific situation.
Got you. So, Sipho, I'm just going to change it slightly to another, you know, legal, something that people are, something that's new in the legal world, papaya or poppy. What does it, some people say papaya, some people say poppy. What do you use?
Poppy Act.
Yeah. It's POPIA, right?
Yeah,
so it could be papaya.
There's
Act at the end. So it's either poppy or a papaya for the end.
But papaya is a fruit.
Papaya is a fruit, or pawpaw. So Sipho, tell us a bit about the Poppy Act. And like a lot of people don't really understand it, and you know, a lot of people say that I'm so hurtful because the Poppy Act was implemented, but these people are still calling me every day like we don't. There's no respect for it. You know, what does the average person need to know about Poppy, and is it of benefit to us?
Yeah, that's quite a question. Thank you for asking it. So look, I'm not a specialist when it comes to Poppy, so you know what I'm going to give is just my understanding of Poppy, because I haven't engaged with it in a while. But I do know that before it came into effect, there was only about like 2 or 3 provisions. And, people thought it was one of those acts that weren't going to come into effect in a very long time. And then when it was suddenly, okay, here you go, papayas and has now been passed. But I can give you a situation of where, you can see the consequences of Poppy. So, Poppy sets out, so there's an individual, so it has a whole lot of definitions. It identifies you as the subject, and whether it's information that relates to you. So they're basically trying to regulate what happens with the processing of your information. So I know, for example, when the matric results came out last year, that was a very big thing, because you have a situation where, if your information is going to be published, then you need to consent. So it was like, but the matriculants haven't consented, and you can see
Their name.
Yeah?
I can add them all on Facebook. I know what school they attend or what province they're in.
But no, it was more of, because you remember now, it was the whole fight was, should the results be published in newspapers?
Okay.
And you can identify them with their you can identify the matric students with their exam number. I think it's an exam number.
Correct.
Yes. So basically the whole argument was, but this is some way that you can identify who the student is, and these people whose information is being published, they haven't consented to this. So you're actually in contravention. So you're going to be in contravention of Poppy, because these people whose information you're publishing haven't consented, and it's information in which they can be identified. So, I mean, it's not an easy piece of legislation to discuss. There are people who have read up very well on Poppy, and they would be able to answer it. But on my end, yeah, it's very loaded, so I'd have to engage with it thoroughly in order to be able to give an opinion. But yeah, there are people who do know how to answer any queries on Poppy.
So in my view, is Poppy so you contact my ID and then get married to me? Like, is that the Poppy spec?
No.
Or is the Poppy just, because for me it's like I'm thinking Poppy is just, I didn't sign up to the hella stuff on YouTube anyway. Boop, 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 Google. Here's my email. In my email, all the other stuff is there, except cookies. Boop, boop, boop. There they got all my information. Poppy. You know what I mean? But now, is it, because I'm thinking of the matric thing. So it was put in the paper. Did you get your results in the paper?
Yes.
It's a part of your culture, yeah.
What was in the, it's a
part of, it's a part of growing up. It's part of the experience.
Can I just interject here? I ran into the Poppy Act in this year. I worked for an NGO, and we worked with kids, and they wanted the parents' information, and and we were supposed to get it from the teachers. And the teachers said, no, straight, we can't give you the information. It was quite a contested thing, because
controversial.
Because the principal told me, no, look, I would have given it to you guys, but the bosses at the NGO, I don't think they are aware of what they should, because they gave us actually legal action to do. You know what I'm saying? Because they were, when we came back, it was like, oh no, it's not that big of a deal. But is it really, can you, in such a case, what does it say, can you get the information? Or how does it work?
Let's just have indemnity form. Let's just have indemnity form.
Yeah.
I love how I said, let's get a specialist with papaya. But I think to answer your question, what Poppy attempts to do is that, there's a lot of people who have collected your information in ways that they shouldn't have collected it. So, in this situation that you've pointed out, it's very difficult, because you get an act. So you have legislators who drafted this act, and the consequences, or some of the consequences that emanate. So it's basically, you need to have the permission from the person whose information you want to get. So from what you've just said, were you trying to get that information from the teachers, the children's teachers?
Yeah.
So you see, they wouldn't be able to give you that information unless they had gotten permission from the parents. So what they should do is say, look, there's this, because remember, the parents gave the information to the teachers for that purpose. So anything related to, school activities, that's why the information is there. So now, you guys are coming in as an NGO to take that information for another purpose altogether. So that's why you would need to, the teachers would say, look, there's this third party coming in here to collect information for X, Y, and Z. Are you happy for us to give the information across? And what you find, I think you touched on it, Fagan, where you get random phone calls and people say, I'm calling from this, I'm calling from that. They're not allowed to do that because you're like, okay, where do you get my number from? And then, people, and I suppose they're doing their jobs, they don't know any better, And you just say, look, but in terms of Poppy, like I have never heard of your company, so who gave you my information? And that's the quickest way to get them to shut the phone in your ear.
I think it's fun. Like when they call me, I say, hello, my name is Boris. They say, not Mr. Cupid, I say, no, my name is Boris. You call number from, I'm in Russia. And then they're like, okay, sir, bye.
I have the yellow stuff, I say anything, Kimi just so, freaking
What do you say? Okay, so let's do it. Good day, can I speak to Mr. Miller, please?
Miller.
Mr. Miller, my name is Jennifer, and I'm calling from First Trust Investment Limited. I'd like to offer you one of our new.
I love it.
Super childish, but it's fun, man. Because also, otherwise, you can either be, you can do that or you be rude to them. Because it is a bit, I get hurtful because I'm busy with work or I'm in a meeting and then they call me. So I just make it fun, and also for those around me, it's fun for them to hear, and then also the airtime's not wasted. Something came out of it.
And the number looks serious when they phone you. But the other one also shout out to all the people that give your number also for the item. What about that?
What?
So a friend of mine out there, hi, Fagan, we got your number from Chad Cupido.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Chad Cupido gave me your number.
Who's Chad?
And I'm like, what? Chad Cupido gave you a number. If you give us another 3 numbers, then we're going to give you the knife. Do you want the knife or the lighter? And I'm just thinking, it's an potent knife.
I actually got a knife. From like an investment firm, like a proper pocket knife. I was like, yo, these people don't mess around. They send you gifts and it's mad.
Okay, so they gave you the item that they spoke about.
No, I didn't want to give people's numbers. Okay, no, I did give me. But I gave like numbers that I know it is that numbers of people. But my thing was they still sent the what you call it? The knife. The knife came in the mail. It's brilliant. You know what I mean? But what is that? Because they're now saying Chad Cupido gave the number. So they're now saying, it's not me, it's him.
Is that allowed?
That's tricky. So
it's all interpretation, I suppose.
To answer that because they can say, well, we got given your number, we didn't go.
Because you're interested in our service.
So so someone has stated that you are interested. So you can play around with that. So and that's the thing about with the law. So if you really want something, you can bend.
Sipho, here's the question. I know it's still on Poppy, and I know it's not like your expertise, but can Poppy be can it be implemented? For example, if I violate, are there any consequences? Can someone sue me?
Not.
You know what I mean? Because it seems like people are getting away with it. So if it can't be executed, or if people can't,
Look, the regulator does have teeth. So the act does set out, if you engage with the act, it states, what you can do, what you shouldn't do, the process for you to follow if you want to lay a complaint. So it does set out the different layers of what to do and all of that. So yes, you can make a complaint. It's just, where we find ourselves as a country, it's like, do I want to waste that time going through all the channels
For something so petty.
How close is Poppy to now we can move away. See, I'm gonna help you move away.
Transition.
Yeah, the transition.
Okay.
How close is Poppy to the defamation of character? Because what if I go now? Now you're gonna see what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna put a picture of your ID somewhere on Facebook.
Okay.
And you're like, I didn't allow that. You did that on purpose, and now I'm married to someone.
Okay.
So how does that work? Is that like now we're going to court now? Because the defamation of character, people love to throw that one around. It sounds very nice. You defamed my character. Defamation.
Yeah, no, defamation of character is also quite something. So I've assisted in one or two matters,
Nice.
but just was entry level. As lawyers, for some reason. No. When I say entry level, people when they get a lawyer letter, they're just like, oh, okay, things are serious now. Let's apologize.
There we go.
Yeah. So in those matters and taking those kind of matters to court, it's quite something, because we do have case law. There were matters that were discussed in the Constitutional Court, which is the highest court. So they have set out the criteria. So I can't remember them at the top of my head right now. But they do set out what you need to look for in order to say, okay, this actually qualifies as defamation. So, what I can tell you guys now, at the top of my head, is when you made that comment, how many were there? Like, was it just, you made a comment to me and it was just the two of us? Or was there a group of people around us who are now relying on the comment that you've made, and they look at me and that's what they think of me? So, there's a lot of hurdles you need to, or rungs in the ladder that you need to climb. With that being one of them, I think, there's a personal story. I know I have a cousin of mine back in, I was still a student, and he was wrongfully arrested. And I mean, he was wrongfully arrested for murder. That's a very, very serious thing. I mean, he's such a soft, gentle guy. And what really irritated me, and I was like, why didn't I know about this? Because you would have had a claim against Minister of Police and all of that, and you would have been able to sue subs. So what happened with him? So he got a random phone call from someone claiming, you are so and so, I know your history. Just told him things about himself, and my cousin's like, whoa, what's going on here? This is creepy, man. It's not right. And then the person like, no, let's meet. I want to talk to you. So it was like, okay, if you want to meet me, let's go meet at the police station by where I stay.
There we go.
And what happened is my cousin had gone with, I think, another cousin and my aunt. So they were all at the police station, because my cousin's like, I got a random phone call from someone telling me things about myself, and it's very weird. So I was like, let's meet in the police station in case whatever goes down, the cops are nearby. And the next thing, it was unmarked vehicles. These, I think, was it part of Hawks, or I don't know which division it was, come in. So imagine a setting in a police station where you get your normal everyday civilians, you're waiting to get assisted, and I think it was the guy who ended up arresting him, was like, hey, there you are, you murderer, come here, let's arrest you. And if you, for example, are in a setting and then someone says, hey, you murderer, what is everyone around you going to think? Because this is a person of authority saying this. You're now going to think that you're chilling in the presence of a murderer, and that's defamation. Because I mean, you're innocent until proven guilty.
Correct.
And now people have seen you once off, and they've seen you once, and they've now formed an idea in their minds that you are a murderer, and that idea isn't going to go away anytime soon. So it's situations like that where you can go ahead and sue for defamation.
And I also
Yes.
Can I just ask you something in the same vein as what he asked you now, right?
Sure.
So with the podcast, we a lot of people say their opinions and stuff like that. Sometimes they might name a company's name,
Sure.
or they might name individual's name. So now I'm thinking a few months back, a blogger actually spoke about Cardi B.
Okay.
And the blogger was ordered to pay 1.4 million, or irrespective of the amount of money.
Happened, sure.
The same thing happened with Alex Jones. He was fined almost $1 billion.
Sure.
Yeah, it was.
Right. So now my mind is like thinking, hey, how do I educate everybody that's on the podcast and myself? Is there maybe like a guideline that we can follow? Because I remember a lawyer spoke to me a couple of years ago, because I sent also something on Facebook, and I told her, give me a guideline, and she said, look, as long as you say your opinion,
Not stating a fact.
and not stating it as a fact. That was her guideline.
I like that.
Is there any way that you can maybe just, for people at home also,
Sure.
especially with social media, you know what I'm saying? You can just educate us a bit on that.
It's dangerous times, yes, Fagan.
No, I wanted to add on that, because for me also, like, ethics is ethics. So
I think, it's safe to say that there's quite a big difference between an opinion where you say, look, I think you are a douchebag. That's, you formulated an idea based on who knows, but you've now reached a conclusion on something, as opposed to saying, with these defamation matters, I think as if you say something as if it were a fact. So whoever you're communicating with, whatever you've said to them, they will take that to be fact and not an opinion. So just to answer your question, so what was the nibbit of your question? Sorry.
So basically, it's just to have some form of guideline as to what we can say, and at what point should I pull back the conversation.
Sure.
Because the thing is, with the podcast world, it is
Live.
It's live, and it's based on the
Fluid.
idea of freedom of speech.
Sure.
But sometimes we don't know where freedom of speech goes into hate speech. You know what I'm saying? And that's the thin line. Sometimes we don't know where we end and where we begin. You know what I'm saying?
I think, with every right comes great responsibility. So it's not an absolute right. So you can't just say whatever you want to say and not expect there to be any consequences. So, I think, and especially the times that we find ourselves living in now, with social media, I know we see it on Twitter. I know there's Black Twitter where, people just say whatever they feel the need to say, but they're hiding behind a mask. And I think it's the Cardi B case. I didn't quite follow it. I just know that someone was sued and they had to pay money. And, what you end up getting is a situation where people say things and think they can get away with saying them. And, you say it to the wrong person who has resources, who will then take you to court. Because if you say something and you say it as if it were a fact, you've got to be able to prove that. Because
Exactly.
the defense to defamation is you must have proof to what it is that you're saying, and then it must be for the public good as well. It must be to some benefit to the public. So there's all these things to take into consideration. But my advice is just stick to being safe. Otherwise you'll
My
find
advice is
yourself in some
A
hot
disclaimer
water.
as well. Maybe a disclaimer to say that the
Disclaimer.
opinion expressed
Yes,
on the
exactly.
I did that at the beginning. I think I should start doing that again. Yeah.
So
Proper
exactly,
disclaimer.
From the company itself.
you definitely need to have that because you then taking yourself away from liability, and you say the views expressed herein aren't
Doesn't
the
reflect
views
the company
of the
views.
podcast, but are the views of the individuals themselves. And you need to have this.
I like it, legal jargon. It sounds better than French, bro. Fixie.
You need to have that stuff to protect you, so that if anything happens, you're like, no, but it wasn't my view, although it was said on my platform. So there's an individual that you should go after, and that's how you cover yourself. Because unfortunately, we live in times where you just have to take those precautions, and if you don't, you find yourself in hot water and you need to spend money to take yourself out of that hot water.
There's a saying, they say, choose your battles fairly and choose also who you're fighting with very carefully, because how they fight is how you're going to fight. And you would rather want to stay away. I think also setting an environment is also very important as well. If it's said in a jokey manner and it's just a conversation and it's nothing in a sense too serious,
For sure,
the context is also very, very important. You know, very, very important. Sipho, I just wanted to ask as well, for a lot of our listeners, for our students as well, a lot of them are not going to study law for 4 to 7 years, and they still want to be protected by this amazing constitution that we have.
Sure.
Yeah. What resources or what do you feel we can implement in the school system, or in online resources? How can we make the law, or how can we make legalities a little bit more accessible and part of our daily lives? Why do we always have to reach out to a lawyer?
Sure.
How do we make law sexy? How can we understand it a bit better? How do we kick the jargon out of the park?
Sure. I think, there's touching on the question that you've asked, there's a movement that we have, or that's going on in the legal world. It's called plain language movement, because you touched upon the jargon. So, if you get some of these agreements that you look at and it's like Latin terms with these big words, and you're like, what are these terms? I'm just signing. I want a lease agreement. Now, what are these? I don't understand. No one's reading this to me. And then when things go south, then you find out what those terms mean, because no one's explained them to you. But to answer your question directly, Chad, I think, what I touched upon earlier on, it's about knowledge is power. It's about being able to gain access to resources. And there are actually resources. It's just about knowing where to find them. So, I know people like going on about our government, but, if you go on to government websites like the Department of Justice, for example, so what we were talking about earlier on, if someone passes away and you want to report the estate, if you just go snooping around, you can actually find that there's information and it's explained quite easily. Maybe they haven't made that information easy for people to find, but there are resources, and I think it's like on platforms like these where we can have a discussion, and it's like we share the knowledge that we have, and then other people can also say, oh, that's great, now I know where to find X, Y, or Z. And then there's also there's something called Derabus. It's basically a legal magazine that comes out once a month, but I think that's more geared towards law students and lawyers, people who understand the law.
Yeah.
It's because a lay person might find that stuff to be a bit boring, but I mean there are other things as well. I mean, if you go to the Constitutional Court, which is the biggest court, it's the apex court in the country, they have because those guys literally make the laws of the land. That's where the final decision making is, in terms of it's passed constitutional muster or it hasn't passed constitutional muster. They have videos, like if you go in, there's an access to go to YouTube and you watch the matters live. For some people it would be boring, but depending on the type of matter it is, so there's a lot of resources, and I think they do explain, like if you go, I'm just trying to think what it is. SAFLI, for example, is another resource. So SAFLI is part of a bigger movement of trying to make legal information accessible to people. So they don't charge you a fee. And with SAFLI, they have case summaries. So, for example, although you can't look for a case properly, let's say you stumble upon a case like, for example, marijuana in South Africa. I remember before it was legalized, government needs to pass that legislation still. I don't think they have, stand to be corrected. But, when they first, because, the whole argument was, marijuana, I'm using it for religious reasons. And I have a constitutional right, obviously.
To choose what I put in my body.
But it's also, your religion and culture. So, that was the whole argument that was advanced for, why in that case, weed is a necessity. It's not a drug. You're viewing it as a drug, but I'm saying I need it for my religion, my culture. It's part of who I am. And you know how that was decided. So, I mean, some people find that interesting. So it's like, okay, look at the summary, look at what the legal minds thought. And it's funny now, so many years later, they changed their views. So it shows that as society, we're forever evolving. And so,
Evolution.
So is the law. And, you know, it's great. Time to be alive.
I think we should have a law and order, but not for criminal.
It
It needs to be like for real use cases, things that happen in life that actually shows you that the law is there not to prosecute you, but actually it's there to protect you. I think there's this big misconception, and also that a lot of lawyers are, in a sense, they're in it for the money, and they're representing people who have a money who wants to go after it. It's like a power thing. It needs to be there. It needs to be fun. It needs to be for the layman. It needs to be for the average person. Can we make it sexy again?
No, I like like even the way you like, again, because of being an avid reader, you are a very good communicator. And again, you make it feel lekker.
Humane.
You know? You make it feel humane. Yeah, like you first gonna listen, and then you'll decide. Instead of this is before I listen, this is what has to be done. Like even when you were saying like Department of Justice, all I was hearing is
Yo, that's the sound. That is the sound. Yo, you got it the perfect timing as well.
It changes people's lives.
Yeah.
But law in itself, I wanted to add with how we can protect ourselves, even with how we speak. Is John C. Maxwell. But I asked him, what is ethics?
Okay.
What is ethics? What's legal ethics or business ethics? And his answer was, ethics is ethics.
Okay.
So how you deliver the information is very important. Because again, Chad said something very important. The context that we deliver it in is important.
For sure.
We have to educate. Educate, inform, and entertain. That's our three pillars, and we will stick to it. It's simple.
For sure.
So nothing's here to attack. Otherwise, we would have. Because there is something we can say we can attack. But you see, you pull that back because you have to entertain and educate.
Sipho, last question. How do you consciousize your fellow lawyers? Because, you know, in one of our earlier podcasts, we spoke about all the problems we are facing in South Africa. And one of the biggest problems is corruption. And I made a point that it's not necessarily that we need to focus on corruption, because people are going to be corrupt. The issue is that they're corrupt, but there's no accountability, or they're not getting prosecuted. You know, and with lawyers as well, or with people in general, a lot of us, we in our professions, but we in our professions, and a lot of us go after the money. You know, so how do we consciousize our legal minds to assist in the fight against corruption?
And is the lawyer also corrupt?
Sure.
Good point there.
Question.
Must add.
Must add, bro.
I think, you know, speaking to the law profession, the law profession is highly regulated. So we have a body called the Legal Practice Council. I'm not going to say much
Shout
about
out to the
them.
Legal Practice Council.
Shout out to the LPC.
Shout out to the LPC.
I think attorneys would be more than happy to tell you about, because everyone has an experience with the LPC. So you can read into whether that's positive or negative, but you know, they function well. Some people would speak to, well, I'm not too sure, but you know, if, for example, if you have a client who doesn't like the way you did something, or you know, there's something that is off in the way that you delivered your duties, or you know, if the attorneys steal funds and trust, or whatever the case might be, you know, you go to the LPC and you can lay a complaint, and they take those complaints very seriously. I think, you know, an example that I can think of right now is, you know, that soccer star Senzo Mayiwa, who was murdered.
What a case.
The advocate who was representing 4 of the accused, Advocate Defo, you know, so they obviously, he wasn't really known before taking on this high profile case, but you know, what's come to the fore since he's taken on the case and the way he's conducted himself, and legal practitioners are like, but we don't conduct ourselves in this fashion. Like, you're not acting like a lawyer now. Like, please. But subsequent allegations that have come out, and the legal practice council is like, okay, we're investigating. I can't remember the number at the top of my head, but you're moving to remove him from the role of attorneys. So they in terms of cracking down on practices which are questionable, they are there, they function. If they find you guilty in disciplinary hearing, they remove you from the role. You cannot practice as an attorney.
But a lot of lawyers, or if you have to interpret, there's lots of loopholes that you can find.
There's loopholes everywhere.
You understand? So if you are taking advantage of, inverted commas, the loopholes, and you're still practicing law the way in which it should, because it is there, it's a doctrine, you interpret it and you do it properly, but ethically you're keeping this person out of jail when the evidence is there, you're prolonging things, you're supporting someone or defending someone who clearly you can see is full of shit, and that is a criminal. It's innocent until proven guilty, but you focus a lot on the innocent when guilty is actually very important for the future of South Africa, to get this person out, to set precedent, to put your foot down, because we need intervention, right?
I think, and most people go after criminal attorneys and they say that, lawyers are liars and all of that stuff, and I think that's, those times have now come and gone. But mostly when it comes to criminal law, people just say, I can't, you guys, where your morals, your ethics, you're defending someone who has allegedly committed a crime. I think what we need to understand, we need to look at the bigger picture. So when I say the bigger picture, you obviously, let's say Chad says, Sipho, look, please represent me, I committed crime X. When it comes to crimes, we have the South African police services who are the ones who investigate. They get the necessary evidence, and there's certain processes and procedures that need to be followed. So, that is an onus which is on the state. So, the police do the work, and then the prosecutor then opens up their file and they put that into their file. So, the onus is on the state to prove that someone is guilty. Where things get a little murky is when, work isn't done properly or things are, a blunder of sorts happens, but, the law is firm. And I remember the one case that it haunted us, for lack of a better term, in law school. It was criminal procedure. And the thing is, procedure is very important, because if you don't get procedure right, you can get someone off on a technicality. And, you do get criminal lawyers who specialize.
In getting you off.
They charge, if you look at
Oscar.
Barry Rue.
You are thinking that, my man?
His legal fees.
What's his legal fees?
His legal fees at the time of the Oscar trial were, I believe, the media reported it, so I'm going with what the media report states.
In his opinion?
It was 50,000 Rand a day.
Yeah.
50 a day?
A day.
That's Manchester.
So, that's, and once again, you look at the South African context and you realize, there's so many that don't have the resources, and there's so many that have the resources, or when they find themselves in the system, they will pay the money that is required to get that specialist attorney who knows how to nitpick the finer things. Or like if a witness goes onto the stand, you're just like, but what you're saying doesn't make sense. This is what is in the written statement, and it's brutal. I remember
Barry was potent, man. Barry was good.
I remember when I did my first year of articles, I smile because I was like in disbelief, but I went with my principal at the time, who was running the road accident fund department and the third party claims where I was at. So it was an inquiry. So some lady was killed by a funicular in a house that she was working at.
A what?
Like a little lift thing. It's called a funicular. That's a pronunciation. Something, but it's like a little lift thing. So instead of using stairs, you take this thing and it takes you to the top and to the bottom. So this lady was busy cleaning this out, and then the inquiry was about whether the one homeowner who was there at the time, they were sick, and then they pressed a button which they thought was a TV remote, and it was alleged that they actually pressed the incorrect button, which was for the funiculator, and then it ended up crushing this lady and she passed away. So now the inquiry was to see, whether there was indeed murder. Do we bring charges? We just need to see what evidence we have.
Negligence or...
So yeah, what happened there in court, and I was like, these lawyers can be brutal. Like, lawyers can be very brutal. So with that being said, one of the responders, who was a guy from a security company, he obviously made a statement because they needed to do things, and then the ambulance came, took the lady's body away, and he was now giving testimony on the stand. And it's an art, like all things in life, like when you're in a trial or when you're questioning a witness.
Oh, so it's real.
No, it's very real. It's very real.
The walk, the look, the leg against the fence.
Sustained. Objection.
If you go to like a criminal court, it's a craft. It's a beautiful craft. I think I love it as a litigator, where the person is on the stand and you want them to give an answer that you want them to give. So basically, here's the parameters that you're playing with. And what you're doing is you're just narrowing the parameters without the person seeing. So in this instance, the advocate was busy questioning the security guard. And I was like, oh man, don't do it. Because I could see he was already contradicting himself because of the way he was answering the questions. So I was like, okay, I can see the net is just going to get like smaller and smaller, and then it's going to be hook, line, and sinker. And literally then the advocate was very friendly. Yeah, so tell me, this is what happened. Walk me through X, Y, and Z. Okay, so when you say Z, tell me about that. And then the person says. So now they're limiting themselves, and then it goes from being friendly to, okay, so in actual fact, what you're trying to say is that, and the guy was so caught up because now it was like attack mode. He actually fainted on the stand. Like, I was sitting there, this man was just like, tick, tick, poof. And then court had to be adjourned whilst we were waiting for that. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is quite something.
I love it. I love it.
Sipho, look on the screen. There's all your fans. You want to say hi to who's Pelani Maphanga?
Yeah, that's my younger brother.
Okay, cool. And want to say a shout out quickly?
Yeah, young bro, what's good? And I see there's my niece there, Nokwans.
How old is your younger brother?
He's 6 years younger than me, so maths is not my fault. I'm a wordsmith. What's the maths? If I'm 30, he's 24.
Yeah.
Okay, nice.
Yes, then my niece, shout out. She's actually in her final year of studying optometry.
Nice.
Very, very bright. Love her to bits. And then Umupui Smanga, long time no see, went to high school with him, so we go way back. And then Steph is a friend as well. So shout out, guys, peace, love, and happiness. Love you guys.
Yeah,
and they all mustn't forget to subscribe. Hey,
yes.
I was waiting years to say that.
Guys, please subscribe.
So we're called Cape Conscious Media. All you have to do is click on the subscribe button and click on the bell as well. And whenever we release a new piece of content, you will be notified. I think it's very important what we're doing here. We're not trying to be